Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ron, and today we're going to be doing another tier list for Deep Rock Galactic. This is going to be looking at all of the overclocks for the Autocannon and ranking them accordingly. So let's get into this. So our first clean overclock is Composite Drums. So Composite Drums gives you 110 more max ammo and knocks off 0.5 seconds from your reload. So rather than taking 5 seconds to reload, this takes 4.5 seconds to reload. I never really reload the autocannon because I'm always running born ready if I take the autocannon, since it's simply the same reload speed, sort of. You can kind of reload cancel and make it a little bit shorter, but it's the same practical reload speed, and most of the time I'll just empty out the autocannon, switch to my secondary, whether that be the revolver or the burst pistol, and not worry about the reload. So the reload didn't really affect me at all whenever I was testing this out, just because I don't tend to reload the weapon. I imagine it will help out a little bit more because the autocannon does reload pretty slow, and 110 more ammunition is really nice. One of the best mods on autocannon is getting it more ammo. So this is a pretty good all-around overclock, and I don't see any reason why not to just toss it into B tier. It's not as good as some of the other autocannon overclocks, but the autocannon is another weapon that has some pretty strong overclocks. This one's all around a very solid one though. If you want to take it, it's good with any sort of build that you want to go with the autocannon, whether you want to go damage, AoE. Our second overclock is the splintering shells. This one makes it so you get one more area damage with each of your shots, and it increases the effect radius of those shots by 0.3 meters. So you get a little bit larger zone to hit enemies with, which is nice. It's pretty nice that you can splash a little bit more with it, and you get a slightly increase in damage. This one I tried, and I didn't really feel that much of a difference between any of my autocannon builds that I usually use, so I didn't really mind it at all. So I'd put this one into B tier. Lower B tier than Composite Drums. Composite Drums is quite a bit better than the splintering shells, in my opinion. Moving on to the balanced overclocks, we have Carpet Bomber. Carpet Bomber gives you 3 more area damage for the cost of 7 of your impact damage. It also increases your area of effect radius by 0.6 meters. Carpet Bomber makes the autocannon incredibly strong against crowds. You can soften up crowds full of armored enemies, whether that be Praetorians or some of the tougher grunts. You can also just completely destroy hordes of grunts, hordes of swarmers very easily. You don't need to aim all that much with this. It might seem similar to splintering shells, but I notice way more of a difference with Carpet Bomber than I do with splintering shells. Splintering shells is still a decent overclock and pretty good overall, but Carpet Bomber, it just makes it feel so much better if you just want to go for an all AoE build, and the all AoE autocannon is really strong, especially when you're playing on high difficulties, to just take out swarms very quickly. I would put Carpet Bomber probably up into S tier. It's very good. All right, up next we have Combat Mobility. This one's kind of a weird one. This gives you 35% more movement speed while you're shooting the gun. It reduces your base spread by 30%, which is pretty nice. It increases your rate of fire scaling higher by 1.5 times, which is pretty nice, so you get up to your full rate of fire much quicker. It also allows you to start the firing rate faster, so you get a faster overall shot. All of this comes at the cost of half of your total magazine. So now you're no longer holding 110 rounds in the autocannon, you're holding 55 rounds in it. This one kind of feels good on lower difficulties. I actually really like combat mobility on the lower difficulties. On the higher ones, not so much. It does feel really nice to actually be able to move quickly with the autocannon out, firing it. Because you can push onto enemies really fast or retreat from enemies really quickly, which is pretty nice. The higher rate of fire is also good. You get up to your max rate of fire faster, which is always a great thing, and it's more accurate, which is great too, because the autocannon is not the most accurate weapon in the world. Losing half your magazine is kind of a big deal on the higher difficulties, where you want to have as many shots as possible. I did once again run this with Born Ready, and I didn't find it that bad or that troublesome to not be reloading too constantly. It still was a little bit of a hindrance to me. I still don't think this one's bad though. Even at the high difficulties, it's still pretty strong, and I'd put it somewhere. I'm going to put it somewhere in the middle of B tier. Up next, we have the Unstable Overclocks, and right away we have Big Bertha. This ups your base damage by 12, which is a lot for the autocannon, and it makes it so you have a tighter spread by 30%, so you are more accurate with this. This comes at a cost of half your total magazine, so once again you go from 110 to 55 rounds in the autocannon. You lose 110 rounds overall, and you lose the rate of fire at the top rate of fire, so your gun is going to be shooting slower. Big Bertha is actually a really fun one to use. It's really strong if you want to take it only for dreadnoughts. It works really well against anything large like Praetorians, dreadnoughts, oppressors. It works really good against grunts too. You can usually kill grunts very quickly with this if you're hitting them directly. Shooting at a long range is a little bit difficult still with the autocannon. It's still not that accurate, so it's a little bit worse against grunts than it is against like Praetorians and oppressors that usually want to get close to you, and you can really deal some high damage to them. Like I said, it works really well against dreadnoughts. It works okay against flying things too, because you are more accurate, so you can actually hit them and you kill them fairly quickly if you are hitting them consistently. Big Bertha, you do kind of have to build around, but it is a really strong overclock. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to put Big Bertha at the high end of S tier or A tier, either high A tier or low S tier. I guess it just depends on the mission. If you're only going for like dreadnought missions and eliminations, then this is probably S tier. If you're going for just about any other mission, I'd probably say it's A tier. And our last overclock is Neurotoxin Payload. This makes it so your ammunition has a 50% chance to trigger the neurotoxin, which makes it deal damage to enemies over time. This also slows enemies, which is pretty nice. And this increases your effective radius by 0.6 meters, so the same increase as Carpet Bomber in terms of effective radius. You do lose out on 2 total damage and 5 area damage though, so you are losing out on more damage. However, you are getting that status effect of neurotoxin. This deals damage over time. This cancels out healing abilities from the bugs if they have regenerative bugs. It also makes it so enemies just can't swarm you as easily. It's a pretty solid option, it's not the most reliable. 50% is still quite good, and keep in mind that you can potentially splash this to multiple enemies. I particularly like Neurotoxin if you combine this with the Driller's Flamethrower and the sticky flames with it. That makes it so you can slow down huge crowds of enemies and make them much more manageable for your team. I really like doing that on the higher difficulties. And I actually really like Neurotoxin Payload. I think I would put Neurotoxin Payload up into A tier. I would say that it's not as strong as the Big Bertha overclock. It's still quite good, and it's still usable in every map, but I wouldn't say it's as good as Big Bertha or Carpet Bomber. So this is where I'd put all of the overclocks for the autocannon. As you can kind of see, the autocannon really doesn't have any bad overclocks. All of them are quite good. Next time we're going to be looking at the burst pistol from the gunner, finish off the gunner, and then we'll move on to one of the other classes. That'll probably be Scout next, because I believe I have the most overclocks for them after gunner. I think I'm still missing a couple for driller and for engineer, so I will have to get those and test them out before I can do a tier list on them, because I would like to actually have accurate information. If you guys are new here, be sure that you get subscribed. That way you get notifications whenever I post any of these videos. Thank you guys so very much for watching this, and I will talk to all of you guys next time. Till then, stay cool, and bye.